Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel for Craft World, Aeldari.com. I'm Brent, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about yet another big Aeldari reveal today on the Warhammer community page. GW has dropped an article laying out the names of all of the detachments that are going to be in the Codex. It's revealed that the default detachment, the battle host, is being renamed War Host, and it's changing massively, which many of us predicted, and I'm happy about that. I think it needed to, for reasons that I went over in my video about what I wanted to see in the Codex. And then they've given us the detachment rules for 2 of the detachments, as well as 2 stratagems and 1 enhancement, which we'll go through in just a moment. And they've told us some other things too. And I just need to start by saying it is totally obvious from this article that in combination with the new faction ability, Aeldari are getting a complete reset. This is a completely new army in terms of how it's going to play, how it's going to feel on the table. Codex Aeldari will be as different from Index Aeldari as Index Aeldari were from like 9th edition Aeldari. This is a major reset for the faction, and it looks like it's going to be a reset that redefines them as a pretty complicated high skill cap army that requires you to keep track of a significant number of overlapping buffs, and that these new detachments are going to give you a lot of different ways to play your Space Elves. I think they will be harder than they have been for newer players, but I think they're going to be probably more fun to play, and if expertly run, very good. It remains to be seen where they'll stack up in terms of overall power levels in the game, but I at least am very excited about these changes. I think that they're really good for the faction. Okay, let's dive into the info contained in the article. So the 7 detachments that will be in the Codex. So Armored War Host that we got as part of the Grotmas calendar will not be in the Codex. It will still be legal, but it won't be in the Codex. The ones in the Codex will be the new War Host detachment, which it's new. It's not going to be the one we had before. They say expansive changes to their army ability. Alongside it will come the Wind Rider Host, so jet bikes and maybe Vipers. The Guardian Battle Host, that's pretty straightforward. A Spirit Conclave, which may be Wraithguard, although there are some somewhat credible rumors floating around the interwebs that maybe it's not specifically focused on wraiths. It could be something else. The Seer Council and the Aspect Host. And we've gotten the detachment rules for the Seer Council and the Aspect Host. Now, what I think is interesting about that is that it's not obvious that those are necessarily focused on particular craft worlds. Like, Ulthway is both the Guardian craft world and the Psyker craft world, but the Psyker detachment and the Guardian detachment are not the same detachment. So it looks like GW is thinking about this in terms of categories of units rather than with an eye towards particular craft worlds, which is actually how the craft world started, right? When Gav Thorpe was a guest on the channel about a year ago, he said that in the early days of like 2nd edition, they hadn't really written any lore for any of the specific craft worlds, and they didn't have any identities. It was just like, this is the jet bike one, this is the Guardian one, this is the Wraith Guard one, and that's really all there was to it. And it seems like we're kind of going back to that. And then you can, onto your detachment, project whatever lore you want. So there's nothing to stop you if you're a Sam Han player or an Andon player, or I'm an Ibrasil player, from picking one of these detachments and designing something that makes narrative and fluff sense for whatever your craft world is. I think there will be something for you, but it looks like maybe they didn't focus on that quite as much as we thought they might. There were some people on the internet who were like, Brent, you're dumb. Obviously, the detachments will be called Sword Wind and Wind Rider Host and, whatever and that's not how it shook out. And I think that's fine. There will also be detachments. There's a detachment. It doesn't say it's mono Harlequin. It says it will let you build around Harlequins. And then there's going to be a Ynnari detachment, which presumably will also, I think they've said, will already also let you use certain Drakara units, which are going to appear in the Codex too, which is exciting. Okay, let's look at the 2 that they have revealed, and we can use the information here to make some other inferences that are very exciting. So the first is the Aspect Host. The Aspect Host detachment rule is called Path of the Warrior, and it does the following. Each time either a unit of Aspect Warriors or the Avatar of Cain, thank goodness they included the Avatar of Cain in this, makes an attack either in the, or fights or shoots, regardless of the phase, it can choose to either reroll hit rolls of 1 or reroll wound rolls of 1 until the end of phase. This is great, right? Like, that's super powerful. It's you reroll all of the ones to wound or all of the ones to hit. Really good. We'll also work on Overwatch, which is neat. If any of the Aspect Warriors have torrent weapons, obviously, you'll want to lean into the wounds. The Avatar presumably will be rerolling its hit rolls, so it's going to like hit on 2s, rerolling 1s, probably both to shoot and to fight, and that's just it's really good. Then we're giving these 2 stratagems, both of which can, one of them can be Aspect Warriors or the Avatar of Cain. The other one only affects Aspect Warriors, but they both have an ability that refers to Aspect Shrine tokens on the cards. But there's nothing in the detachment rule about like putting Aspect Shrine tokens on the cards, which tells me that all of the Aspect Warriors in the Codex, all of the Aspect Warrior units, will have some special rule, and then they'll have some other special rule for which you use your Aspect Shrine token. And it looks like maybe these stratagems give you some alternative ways to use those tokens. So I'm guessing that if you've got a unit of 5 Aspect Warriors, it'll have one of these tokens, and if you have a unit of 10, it may have 2, for the simple reason that that's what comes in boxes. For years, when you bought a unit, you've gotten the Aspect Warriors, and then you've gotten this like Aspect Shrine little fetish statue thing that doesn't do anything mechanically, that you don't put on the table. It's just there. It's in the box. And now they've made rules for those. We don't know what they are, but you're going to be able to expend those to do extra cool things with your Aspect units, which is neat. But also, if you happen to be running an Aspect host, you can use them to enhance stratagems also. So here are the 2 stratagems we know about. The first one is called To Their Final Breath. It can be used on either Aspect Warriors or the Avatar of Cain, and it is a stratagem that a lot of detachments in 40k have. When a model use it in the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, so you have to decide before you know how much damage the enemy does. But if a model dies, you roll a d6, and on a 4-up, the model gets to fight before death. But if you want to expend an Aspect Warrior Shrine token thing, instead, they get +1 to the roll, so they would fight on a 3-up before death. Really good for the Avatar of Cain. A fight on death ability for the Avatar of Cain could it's a 50% chance, but that's huge on like a terrifying combat monster. And it could be good on stuff like Banshees, for sure. Or maybe Scorpions. Or maybe even Exarchs with melee weapons if they're like the last model in the squad and it's late game and something really has to die. The other stratagem that's been revealed is called Preternatural Precision. I think this one's a little more exciting than the first one, but the first one's good. It only affects Aspect Warriors. You use it in the shooting phase, and when you use it, you can choose to give the unit one of the following: ignores cover, lethal hits, or sustained hits 1. If you want to expend an Aspect Shrine token, you can give the unit 2 of those. Now, sustained hits on something like Fire Dragons could be pretty interesting and pretty excellent, especially if they continue to have reroll abilities, increasing your chances of triggering those sustained hits. While units that already have one of those things will benefit from being able to stack them. So, I don't know what Dire Avengers will be like this time around, but if they already have sustained hits or lethal hits, which I think is likely, being able to give them the other one and then also have them ignore cover could really get a unit like Dire Avengers there when it wasn't really there before. Or something like Dark Reapers. If we can run Dark Reapers in units of 10, and we don't know if we'll be able to, right, run 5s and 10s on the Aspect Warriors, but if we can, they could be a really powerful unit for buffs. If they continue to have a similar shooting profile to what they have right now, 10 Reapers putting out 20 shots with sustained hits would be no joke. So we have to see, but it looks like this is probably going to be a
very effective tool for really juicing aspect squads for sure.
Okay, let's talk about the enhancement, which is incredibly exciting, not because of what it does, but because of what it reveals. So the enhancement is called Strategic Savant. You can only give it to an Autarch or an Autarch Wayleaper, and it lets models in the Aspect Warrior unit it's leading add 1 to their OC, which, I mean, 1 to OC is nice and all, but that means that Autarchs can lead Aspect Warriors, and that is just so exciting. We all wanted this. Every elf player wanted this at the beginning of 10th edition, and many of us thought that it just didn't make sense that Autarchs couldn't do this because they had been all of these different Aspect Warriors, and now it's a thing. You'll be able to have like a foot Autarch leading your Dark Reapers or your Fire Dragons, or a Autarch with wings flying around with your Swooping Hawks, and that's just really exciting. And should open up a lot of new opportunities for ways to play Aspect Warriors and build the squads and make them interesting and create overlapping buffs and synergies in that way that Aeldari are supposed to do when they excel. Okay, we'll take a look at the Seer Council detachment. This is like the psychic detachment. We already knew that the Strands of Fate rule was being reassigned to the Seer Council detachment. GW told us this a while ago, but it's false, people. Strands of Fate are gone. They're gone. This rule is called Strands of Fate, but it is not. It is something completely new and different. It's more command points is what it is. That it can only be used for specific stratagems, but then you can further manipulate. So here's the deal. There are, of course, 6 detachment stratagems, right? We have their names. Presentment of Dread, Forewarned, Unshrouded Truth, Fate Inescapable, Isha's Fury, and Psychic Shield. Before the game begins, if you're playing a 2,000-point game, you roll 4 dice, and those are your Fate dice. The numbers you've rolled on your Fate dice correspond to one of those stratagems in the order that I just said them aloud. So, like, Presentment of the Dead is number 1, and Forewarned is number 2, and so on. Each of those Fate dice can be used to trigger the stratagem that it corresponds to for free. It still counts as having used it, so it doesn't let you double it up. And you might be thinking to yourself, Brent, you're telling me that their detachment rule is 4 additional command points that are limited to specific stratagems? That's not cool. It is cool. It's cool because it looks like the stratagems for Seer Council are just going to be off the freaking hook, like super powered. Their thing is super powered stratagems and more CP to make use of them. Also, the enhancement that was spoiled, it may not surprise you to know, lets you fudge the Fate dice. So actually, each of those probably could be used for like 2 or 3 different stratagems, not 1. And I think you're always going to want this enhancement because in order for the Seer Council to function at maximum effectiveness, you're going to want that flexibility. So here are the two stratagems that have been revealed. The first one is called Unshrouded Truth. I should say it, technically speaking, it doesn't let you use the stratagem for free. It reduces its cost by 1 CP. Both of the ones that are revealed cost 1. There'll probably be one that costs 2, so maybe not totally free. But let's look at these two. They're both super. Unshrouded Truth is triggered in your movement phase for 1 CP. You choose an Asuryani infantry unit, so no Corsairs or Harlequins. You choose an Asuryani infantry unit that has not been selected to move this phase and is within 9 inches of an Asuryani Psyker model, and it bamps somewhere else on the field 9 inches away from enemy models. So it just gives you an immediate deep strike. It cannot move after doing this. It counts as its move action. But wow, is that ridiculously powerful. On the first turn of the game, you could teleport a unit of Rangers or a unit of Striking Scorpions or a unit of Fire Dragons into your opponent's deployment zone to score a secondary objective, or if it's Fire Dragons, blast something. It's just so unbelievably good. And we know that Autarchs can lead Aspect Warrior squads now, so you could have like maybe an Autarch or a Phoenix Lorder going with them, and the opportunities that may open up for crazy, terrifying tactical play are fabulous. And I really like that this keys off of having an Asuryani Psyker within 9 inches of the model. Some of you may remember that when I made my video about like what I wanted to see in the Codex, what I said about the Seer Council is I want really cool psychic stratagems to key off having a nearby Psyker, so that you're, regardless of what the Warlocks do quote unquote do on their card, for example, they're essential in the Seer Council list because they're cheap Psykers that let you make use of powerful stratagems, and that's exactly what's happened, and I'm really excited about it. I just think that that's like tactically and narratively very, very cool. And in a world in which we don't get to choose our psychic powers anymore, gives us a way to kind of choose our psychic powers, which is neat. The other stratagem that's been revealed is called Psychic Shield. This one is also just bonkers cool. You do it in your opponent's shooting phase after the enemy unit has selected targets, and you can pick an Asuryani infantry unit from your army, and it's got to be within 9 inches of a Psyker model, and just declare that it has lone op outside of 18 inches. So you could have, for example, a unit of 10 Dark Reapers on your back line with their Reaper launchers, and an Autarch leading them with a Reaper launcher, staring at everything on the field, and just say, nope, sorry, we cannot. We have a Psychic Shield. Any projectiles, just boom off of our Psychic Shield, because we are space elves, and that's how we roll. Okay, and lastly, let's talk about the enhancements, I should say. There's actually 2 revealed here, which is really cool. The first one is called Lucid Eye. You give it to an Asuryani Psyker model, any Asuryani Psyker model. In your command phase, you can add 1 or subtract 1 from the value of one of the fate die in your fate dice pool. I think we will always take this, unless it's like 40 points or something. I think that this is just a thing that you will have in every single, because the psychic powers are so good, and the detachment is going to so heavily rely on them, and the ability, therefore, to manipulate those dice to have the ones that you need, I think, is going to be absolutely essential. So there's no world in which, I suspect there's no world in which we just don't take this all the time. The other one is called the Torque of Moray Heg, which is just a cool name. I love that there's a torque of a crone goddess. That's awesome. You give it to a Psyker model. Once per turn, when your opponent targets a unit from their army within 12 inches of the bearer with a stratagem, the bearer can use this enhancement. If it does, increase the CP cost of that usage of the stratagem by 1 CP. What I like about this is that it does not require line of sight. So you could have something like a Warlock Skyrunner behind cover in the midfield, and when your opponent throws some absolutely essential stratagem on like a big block of Terminators or something on the first turn or the second turn, you can say, that's extra expensive. This is obviously going to be situational and I think very meta dependent, but it's the sort of thing that I could see making a really big difference in high level play, where players are predicting the lists that are going to be the biggest obstacles that they run into and the powers that they need to shut down. But it might be one that less experienced players don't have as much of a reason to take. And that's what I've got about this. And I hear that tomorrow we're going to find out some things about Harlequins and Ynnari. So I'll hopefully be back tomorrow with even more. Until then, take care. Bye.